Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We are very excited for this one because we're talking about LinkedIn. We love talking about LinkedIn because I feel like it's really had a moment this year, and I think it's just going to continue into next year, as well as the topic of building a community. So two things that I think are just going to grow even more next year. So we're very excited to chat about it. And of course, I have a special guest. So very excited to go into it. I love how everyone is sharing in the chat where they're joining from. They already know I'm going to ask that question. So I love it. We were just talking about the weather, and where I am, it is so cold today because it's really windy. It says it feels like minus 15 Celsius. So I was like, my dog didn't want to go for a walk today. She just stopped in her tracks and was like, no, we have to turn around. But I was okay with that because I also didn't want to go for a walk. But it is so cold. Ellen says, hi, really wet and windy UK.
Yep.
Yep. Awesome. Yes, it did feel like the Arctic today. It is chilly. Oh, it's hurricane weather where you are, Michael. That's not good. Weather's all over the place. Wow, minus 24? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is, I thought it was cold here, but you win. Oh, you just had an earthquake in San Francisco? Wow. Okay, the weather is crazy today. The weather needs to chill out, but I hope everything is okay in San Francisco and that the earthquake didn't cause any damage. All right, so we'll get right into it because I know we have a lot of amazing things to cover today, but a few things before we get into it. So if you discovered this webinar maybe on LinkedIn or somewhere online, and you have no idea who we are HeyOrca. So HeyOrca is a social media scheduler for teams and agencies. So we're here to assist you with all of your social media scheduling. And my favorite part is that we have unlimited users, which is awesome. So this means your whole team can be on the platform without actually having to pay for every single user. So that's my favorite part, and I always have to mention that. And then we'll do a quick round of intros. So my name is Alyssa, and I'm a community manager here at HeyOrca. So I work on our weekly webinars, our newsletter, Facebook group, all that kind of stuff. And I'll pass it over to our special guest.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diogo. I'm a marketing executive at Creative Pod. We are a marketing, design, and web agency based in Surrey, in West Sussex. If anyone in the chat knows where that is, it's just outside of London, in south of London. And we use HeyOrca every day to manage the social media channels of our clients, both personal and their pages. And that is it.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you. And Jesse just put his LinkedIn in the chat there so you can connect with him. And we also put the Creative Pod website in the chat. So definitely check that out. The team is awesome. And if this is your first webinar, we do giveaways. So we try to make it really fun. And there's actually 2 different giveaways. So you have 2 different opportunities to win an Amazon gift card. So the first way is so easy. We have a poll going on right now on our LinkedIn page. And Lyle just put the link to the poll in the chat. All you have to do is go over there, vote on the poll, and you are automatically entered into the giveaway. So tomorrow at noon, I will be randomly selecting someone who voted, and you will be receiving an Amazon gift card. Now, the second way to win requires a little bit more effort, but you have more time to do it. So the second way to win is you can share what you learned in this webinar today, tag HeyOrca, and we will be randomly selecting somebody as the winner for that one. So for this one, it does take a little bit more effort. So you actually have until Tuesday at noon for this one. So you have a little bit more time, because I know for myself, it takes me a long time to write a LinkedIn post. So this is good. So 2 different ways to win. So definitely check that out. And I do want to shout out last week's winner here. She shared what she learned in our TikTok webinar last week. So definitely want to give her a shout out. This could be you on here next week. And then I don't see the poll on LinkedIn. I think Lyle put the link in the chat there. You should be able to go right to it from that link. Is there only one winner to be selected from this session? So there'll be one winner for the poll giveaway and one winner for the second giveaway, where you're posting on LinkedIn about what you've learned. Is there a way to get past recordings? Yes. So this one is being recorded. You will get a copy of this recording tomorrow, but we also put our webinars on YouTube as well. So you can head over to our YouTube channel or go to heyorca.com/webinars, and they're all there as well. So you can binge all of them. All right, perfect. So we will get right into the good stuff now. Let me share it here. Awesome. Oh, there it is. Yeah, perfect. And I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. So the topic for today's webinar is how to build a strong LinkedIn community for a brand. So we're going to be looking at a few key topics. So what is meant initially by building a community on LinkedIn? We'll look at the benefits for a brand, but these also apply for those who are personal content creators on LinkedIn, just as much as people doing this from a company or business point of view. And then we'll look at 3 key ways of how to start building this community on LinkedIn, whether that's through content, the initial page setup, and some best practices. And then we'll look at some examples and questions that we found as a marketing agency, that we found success by applying some of these points that we'll be covering. So initially, what is meant by building a community? So here we're talking about building your audience, your following, and those who are going to engage with your content and your page. So there's a number of ways that this can be done. This can be through gaining followers, through people engaging with your content, liking, commenting, sharing. This can be done through paid advertising and all the call to actions that LinkedIn provide, as well as employee advocacy as well, which is quite underrated by many businesses, of how impactful that can be. So that's what we're talking about when we say we're building a community. So building that core audience that's going to resonate with your content and ultimately is going to engage with your call to actions and your growth patterns. So how do we do this? Well, there's several ways we do that, but initially want to look at why it's beneficial, why it's important, because yes, it does take some time, take some effort to initially grow that community, grow that audience, that following. There are several benefits to doing this. A lot of the data that we're talking about in this presentation is hands-on data that we've found as an agency working with our clients, and we found within several industries, not just in the UK, but worldwide as well. So we've sort of summarized that into our top 10 benefits. So we'll run through them very quickly. Increased brand visibility, so making your brand known not only to your potential clients or your prospects, who are obviously very important, but just in general, making sure that you're known within your industry as someone that is professional. You want to as well enhance the credibility and authority. So this is something that LinkedIn really values as a platform, as an algorithm, thought leadership. So when LinkedIn sees that in your industry you are one of the top people, top businesses that really knows what they're talking about, really provides insightful information, LinkedIn really values um, those bits of content. So that's a huge benefit, because ultimately, if LinkedIn finds your page valuable, it's going to promote it even more. You're going to have an enhanced reach, which is obviously very, very rewarding. Um, in terms of engagement and interaction, that sort of carries on from what we were just talking about, that the more in visibility, the more credibility you'll have as a page, as a business, that ultimately um, that ultimately means that you're going to have more engagement, more interaction with people on there. Also, that relates to the loyalty and advocacy of your existing clients, prospects as well. And you think of it, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the whole point that LinkedIn can be your virtual shop floor, sort of how your website is your shop floor. Seeing that loyalty of repeat users, repeat customers, let's say, is something that's going to be, we can say, is a benefit from building that community on LinkedIn. And also networking opportunities. So again, that thought leadership is going to really elevate your brand, your business into a space that you can have the opportunity to collaborate with other industry leaders, and that opens up a whole plethora of opportunities. Whether that's doing collaborative networking events or doing webinars like these, whatever the case may be, there's always those opportunities to network with industry leaders. And then this also provides you a lot of insight. Um, Obviously, when your following grows, when you get that community, you're able to see what really resonates with your target audience. Perhaps you find that one bit of content works really well, and then you really want to push for that going forward. And perhaps something else doesn't really work too well, it doesn't really resonate. That feedback, that insight is really invaluable, and that will help you going forward. We talked about partnerships and collaborations. Um, in terms of higher content reach and amplification. So obviously, the better the content, the more you're going to reach to those prospects, those key that key target audience that you want to reach. And then this ultimately leads to generating leads and conversions. So obviously, the more people you reach, the higher opportunity you have to generate leads or conversions, whatever that may be. And perhaps one of the most underrated point of views when it comes to growing your business, growing that community on LinkedIn, is recruitment and talent acquisition. Many will agree that the recruitment market is quite difficult at the moment, both for people that are finding jobs, but also businesses hiring. So really having a page set up um, in a proficient manner on LinkedIn is going to help you significantly in the recruitment process. People are going to see your page, they're going to see your employees engaging with your content, doing content themselves and tagging your page. They're going to see those things, and that's going to make your business stand out as somewhere that people will want to work with. So there are a few of the benefits. Obviously, there are a lot more, but there are just a few of the benefits that we found as an agency that have come from growing a brand, growing a community on LinkedIn. And we've noticed this across from startup businesses to businesses with 5,000 and more employees, whatever the case may be. These benefits all resonate um, very much together.
Awesome. We
Cool.
actually do have a question here from Laura. So she asked, what differs employee advocacy from social selling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in a word, authenticity. It's very hard to. It's a very fine line, isn't it? That social selling or employee advocacy. Um, I think setting in place perhaps something where you're encouraging your team to share their own personal experiences and giving them that freedom to post, and you're not telling them, oh, okay, we need to post about this project or about this study, because then you're already giving them a boundary. making it authentic, allowing them to talk about whatever it is, positive and negative, because let's all be adults. Business isn't always positive, but it's good to talk about those negatives as well. So, for example, I'll use us as a case study. We as marketing executives, we look after a variety of clients. So we have free roam to talk about our clients whenever we want, about projects that we're doing, or for example, a few weeks ago we had men's International Men's Health Mental Health Day. So that was something where a few of us in the company, we took the initiative to talk about our mental health and speak about what our company has helped us with mental health. So really, that's a really prolonged answer, sorry, but I think authenticity is uh, is the key for that question. Setting no boundaries, giving your employees as much wiggle room as possible to be open, be honest, and not making them feel forced into posting something just for the sake of posting it. Um, so I hope that answers your question, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, Laura just said that's great. Thanks for your perspective.
Great. Cool. So now we'll look at how we start building this community, or this following for a brand. Um, I think the main point with this section is that content is king, content is queen, however you want to phrase it. Content is the most important thing on LinkedIn. There are several factors that fall into this on LinkedIn. So, for example, trying to go viral in the past perhaps would have worked on LinkedIn, but now that's something that they red flag. Essentially, they don't really like viral content, let's say. I know we've talked about thought leadership already, but that really is the key for your content, really promoting yourself as leaders in your industry, um, making sure that you are the people to go to for your industry. If I need this and need help with this financial situation that my business is in, that I know I can go to these guys, because um, LinkedIn's always promoting their content. I'm seeing my connections in engage with their content too. So you really want to establish your voice on LinkedIn. And there's several ways that you can do this. You can post data that you find as a business and talking about that. So research. Perhaps you've conducted some internal research or with your clients, and you can use that data. Things like that are really valuable on LinkedIn, and that's the sort of things that people on LinkedIn and LinkedIn themselves really value. So quality content is the most important thing when you're wanting to build um, a community on LinkedIn, making sure that your content is something that's not only valuable for yourselves, but also for LinkedIn as a whole, your target audience, fellow peers, the industry as a general, and any potential partners that you identify down the line. Moving on, here's this is a sort of graphic that we use when we do some training for some of our clients. 8 sort of content pillars that we've found have been successful when using LinkedIn. So I won't go through all of them in too much detail, but essentially it all centers around that idea of thought leadership, and I'll keep banging on about that idea because it's so important. So you want to add instructional content, so practical step-by-step advice. I always like to use the financial industry as an example for this one. Is if you don't work in the financial industry, as I don't, I'm sure you find it sometimes very confusing what's happening with this or what's happening with that. And sometimes you just want a very simple, explain it to me in layman's terms answer. That sort of content is really valuable on LinkedIn. Yes, you can have the more in-depth content that's going to find people in your industry, but ultimately, if you're a business, you want more clients. So you want to speak to them in language in terms that they understand. Inspirational content. So this revolves around the idea of case studies or success stories, both from your team. If your team member has done some training and you want to give them a shout out, also if your company has successfully completed a project, for example, how did you get through that? So giving that inspirational side of things. Analytical, again, sort of revolves around the idea of data driven content, providing insights, keeping up with your industry and updates, key events that are happening within the industry, giving your input, but not only your input, but also listening to others, engaging with the community as a whole. The fourth one is a bit um, controversial. It's in the name, um, but that's something that it is good. Sparking conversation. LinkedIn really values comments and replying to comments, both good or bad. But having that conversation, getting people to discuss something that is happening, something that you've shared, is really important. And that sort of ties in with the fifth point of comparative content. Um, so making comparisons between strategies, between products, between concepts, between ideas, those sorts of points allow your readers to make informed decisions because you, as the expert in your field, have given as many ideas as possible. And that sort of ties into the sixth point as well, insightful content. So um, based on those current events, based on what's happening in your industry, what insight can you provide? What information do you have that perhaps someone in your industry doesn't know or wouldn't know where to find that industry, especially if it's something timely that's just happened? Being able to provide that information in an instant is really important. And reflective content. So similar to the successful stories, inspirational side of things, but also looking at perhaps your failures. Again, this sort of ties in with thought leadership because as a business leader, perhaps you can talk about failures that you've had as a business owner, but then how did you overcome those lessons? Those sort of points are really do really well on LinkedIn. We've seen it as an agency when we post for our personal clients and their personal pages, telling these bits of content. And the last sort of content pillar that we have here is evolutionary content. So talking about the difference, contrasting between past and present scenarios. So how have you seen growth over time in a specific topic, whether that's growth in an industry or growth in a product, growth in a service? And what has caused that growth or what has caused it to not grow, to stagnate perhaps. So talking about evolutions, trends, those sort of key ideas. So those are 8 content pillars that we sort of champion in-house at Creative Pod and we think work really well. We've seen that it works really well, so perhaps they work well for you too.
It looks like we do have a few comments in the chat. We have one question here. This is a good question. Have you found that video content or normal text posts do better? Because I know we're seeing more video content on LinkedIn. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so video content's really becoming popular on LinkedIn now, isn't it? I think they've
Mhm.
recently launched that new video side
Yes.
to the app as well. So I think that shows how LinkedIn are really prioritizing video content. From personal experience, we found that it really depends. I'll use another example to emphasize that point. Um, we have a client that works in the financial industry, in a property industry, pardon. And sometimes when there's information on the market, it's LinkedIn becomes flooded with articles and opinions, and it comes back to that point. Well, I just want something quick. I want something informative. I don't want to get straight to the point. I don't want to read a lot of text. um, so a video in that instance, a quick 30-second summary video, we found that has worked very well because people want to get that information quickly. People want that information handy to them, and they don't want to scroll perhaps for a long time.
Mhm.
So it really depends on the industry and on the topic, but given that LinkedIn are moving in that direction of promoting video content. They have that whole new section on the platform for video content that indicates where their priority lies. So I think, especially next year, I think we're going to see on LinkedIn a lot of video content going forward, and a lot of businesses upping the ante in producing video content. But that's not to say the normal text posts don't do well. Of course, they're still uh, pretty much the dominant force on LinkedIn at the moment. But
Yeah.
I think it's a balanced where possible. I think video content is gonna start replacing that, but until then, I think it does really depend.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I see more text posts than video at the moment, but like who knows how it will go next year, especially with, like you said, LinkedIn is kind of prioritizing video content. So we'll probably start to see more and more of it. Another question here, can LinkedIn detect the difference between AI generated content and original content?
Oh, that is
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with images it does. I'm not sure about the actual text post though.
yeah. I don't. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything in terms of text itself. I would imagine that perhaps on any paid advertisement, there
Yeah.
is some form of AI checker that probably has it when your ads are being reviewed. But in terms of when you post content itself, I don't think it is at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, I could be mistaken, but I believe that it isn't. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is introduced. One thing that I would say is that people on LinkedIn are very good at spotting
Yes.
AI generated content. So that's something to keep in mind.
It's very true. You definitely, if you're going to use AI, definitely use it as like a starting idea and
Mm,
then tweak it with your own flair for sure. You don't want to fully copy and paste that because people will detect that. We have a few more questions, but I'll let you go to the next slide and I'll
Cool.
save them until after.
Cool. So the next point is if you're starting from scratch, or even if you already have your company's page set up, one thing to remember is, and I think I reiterated this point earlier, is your page is your digital shop floor. One aspect of this is LinkedIn are really pushing newsletters. So newsletters as a feature on a company page. So they're really providing competition for platforms such as MailChimp or MailerLite or any other email marketing platform that you perhaps use. LinkedIn are really pushing to use newsletters. So if you think of that as another resource that you can utilize for your page, if you already have a newsletter, perhaps taking what you're doing and replicating it onto LinkedIn. There's so many different tools as a page that you can utilize, and they have the premium page option now as well. That it's only come to the UK fairly recently. I'm not sure in the US or anywhere else. I think it's been around for a bit longer, but we haven't had the opportunity to try it out as of yet. But I know that that's something that um, the LinkedIn are pushing at the moment, that premium page. So really making sure that everything in your page is set up 100%. Like for example, I've included a very brief screenshot of our company's initial page when initially someone looks on our page, and you can tell right away that it gives you an idea of what our company is like. Not very serious, a bit playful. We see a dog in the banner, but that's because it's our 18th birthday as a company. So we've taken that motion and wanting to show that on our LinkedIn. So that's an opportunity for someone that doesn't know us and that's come into our page for the first time to see really what we're about. So having these sort of details elevated on your page is going to be the first impression that many are going to find for your business. And you can't make a first impression a second time. So really making sure that your page is set up um, to the best of your ability. And LinkedIn have recently updated their dashboard with a bunch of new features. Um, so that's something that everyone should try, if possible, to make sure that you're up to date with. LinkedIn do a good job of informing people of when there are new features, so that's something to bear in mind. As in terms of some initial key points, it seems self-explanatory, but you wouldn't believe the amount of times we've taken over a LinkedIn page for a client and these points haven't been covered. So making sure that your page name is correct, you're using clear imagery, you've got a good description about your company, you're using call to actions, because there are so many call to actions that you can use as a page on LinkedIn for free. Providing as much detail, so company size, your website, your contact details, and really emphasizing your branding and your core messaging as a company, such as your keywords that people will search and your company can show up in. I talked about the newsletter feature as well, but they also have some really good analytical features to gauge the success of your page on LinkedIn. So it seems very, very basic, but it's something that's often a hurdle for many, that because it's easy, we overlook it. But making sure that your page is set up to the best of your ability is really important. I can't emphasize how important it is. Um, you think from a recruitment point of view, if someone sees your page and it's not really set up, or it says that 0 people work here, you're like, oh, hang on, do I want to work here? It has no face, it has no description. It's minor details like that, but then you think of it from a client's point of view. If they see, oh, they don't have a description, what did they actually do? Oh, I'll look somewhere else. It's these sort of details that you want to remember that people are going to be looking out for. So making sure you're utilizing all of LinkedIn's features when you're setting up your page, and making sure you're keeping up to date with any new features that they release, such as the newsletter feature, the new premium company features that they're pushing as well. Cool. And in the next section, so we're looking at a few best practices um, for building your community. So we've thought of 5 from doing some research with our clientele, and around the industry as well, around the market. What best practices would we recommend for anyone that's wanting to start to build a community, already doing it, um, making sure that you following these key points. So I think the first one, perhaps most important one, is making sure that you're regular with high quality and varied content. Um, if everyone could post not once a week, once a day, or 5 times a week, that would be great. But realistically, not everyone can. We found that a sweet spot for us and for our clients has been 2 to 3 times a week with varied content. So I think that goes back to the question we had earlier between long form text, video content, a variety of content, and then finding what works best for you and your audience. If you find that you get 50 likes, 10 comments on video, but on the long form, you get 1 like and 2 comments, then that's going to show you that video content is what resonates best with your audience. So LinkedIn have a variety of content methods. You can use your PDFs, your videos, imagery, you can use polls. So really try and find what works best for your audience. Initially use that variety, find what's best, make sure your content is high quality, both in terms of look, but also the content itself, the copy. Make sure it reads well, it flows well. Use the keywords that your audience are going to be looking for. One thing that we've been pushing as well for our clients to do is to make sure that their teams collaborate with their content. So encouraging them to like, comment, share with a comment. Put that in brackets, because sharing a post essentially does nothing on LinkedIn, but if you share and add the comment alongside the share, it does do well. Encouraging them to post and tag your company. So again, this sort of comes back to the first question we had between employee advocacy and social selling. So you want to obviously encourage your team to do it. You don't want to force your team to do it, but where possible, listen to your team and their ideas. What do they want to post about on your page? What ideas do they have? If you're listening to their ideas, they're going to be more likely to collaborate with your content, want to like, want to comment, want to share your content. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, want to make sure we're engaging with our audience. So it's it's quite often that we actually see people or companies, for that matter, they're doing their post and they sometimes they get a comment, but they don't reply to it, and I think that's one potential lead gone, just by not replying, not starting that conversation. Um, LinkedIn values engagement a lot. If we're commenting, if we're liking comments, if we're replying to them, if someone shared our post and then we're commenting on that again, or giving our feedback, our input, that's something that LinkedIn values. It's gonna see that this is relevant content. It's gonna post it a bit more out there. It's gonna stay in people's feeds for longer. So engaging with your audience is key. We've spoke about a little bit in the previous slide about using LinkedIn's features. So that again, the newsletter platform is becoming really useful. We found that some of our clients have moved away completely from paying for a paid email marketing subscription and just moving their newsletter to LinkedIn, because with just copying and pasting a link, you can send it to someone and they've all of a sudden subscribed to your newsletter. You can send it to your connections, you can share it. There's so many things that you can do with the LinkedIn newsletter, and that's just one of the many features that LinkedIn has. So it's definitely one to take advantage, and one best practice that we would recommend. We've seen that newsletters this year have become much more popular on LinkedIn, and we believe that that's something that's going to become even more popular in 2025, as LinkedIn obviously is promoting it quite often. And then the fifth final best practice, talked about it so much, but really thought leadership content is really important. Resharing articles from valuable sources, reliable sources within your industry, posting research. If you've done a poll with your following, for example, um, on LinkedIn using that poll feature, you can then do a follow-up post, for example, include a graph, include some statistics to perhaps why the graph is like that. Showing that sort of information um, is valuable on LinkedIn. It shows LinkedIn that you're an expert in your field, that you're conducting research, you're providing valuable content, you're providing something that people should be watching, should be looking into, and that's going to elevate your following, elevate how many people are engaging with your content. So those are some of the best practices that we found from building a community on LinkedIn, and that we'd recommend that people follow too. Moving on to the next slide. So we're sort of just showing initially some brief examples from what we talked about. So by utilizing those best practices, following those sort of key steps that we talked about, this is an example of one client. So before working with us, their LinkedIn was fairly dead in the nicest way, and they won't mind me saying that. But they really weren't utilizing too much the features. Now we've introduced a newsletter over the last year or so that has over 1,000 followers and is one of the largest followed newsletter in their community. We've implemented content and sharing content from reliable sources that's relevant to their industry, sharing events that they're attending, and post follow-up events is something that they weren't doing, but tagging their team in sort of incentivizing that conversation has been doing really well. And we've seen through HeyOrca, through their reporting, how they're following, how their engagement has increased really significantly over the last 6 to 8 months. And with that in mind, a top tip that we would recommend is always looking out for, if you're struggling for content ideas or what to post, is look at what top creators or businesses are posting on your industry. Latch on to any key topics that are happening in your industry, be reactive, be prompt. So that's something where perhaps you can schedule your content for a whole month. That gives you the flexibility to, when there is breaking news or when something has happened in your industry, you've got capacity to react to it, because you don't have to worry about, oh, what am I going to post today, knowing that you've already had something scheduled perhaps. So yeah, scheduling your content perhaps in a monthly basis allows you to be reactive to what's happening in your industry, within what your target audience will find relevant. A final very brief example is, this is just some few screenshots of the personal page of a client that we were looking after. So again, he had LinkedIn, wasn't really using it. When he was posting, he wasn't really following any of the best practices or any of the content pillars that we talked about, and it wasn't really doing too well. But over the last 365 years, these numbers perhaps aren't very big for many of you watching, but we can see the percentage increase for engagements, for the impressions, for the members that his content has reached. So if we're looking at 15,000%, 3,000%, 1,500%, so these increases from a few very minor tweaks from what the ideas that we've talked about in this presentation, adding different types of content, um, being a thought leader in his industry, using various types of content, whether it's video, long form, imagery, PDFs, polls. We've used all of these to find what's worked best, and the results have been that um, he's been able to reach more people, and that's ultimately driven more business to him, to his company, which at the end of the day is what everyone wants. Um, a top tip that we found from this client in particular is that when we post using his account, of course, we found that a picture of himself or the team at an event, for example, does incredibly well, and it opens up conversation. We don't know why that's been, but we've trialed it from when he's been to an event. A picture of him at the event versus a picture of him, a picture of just the event itself, just the location, or him saying that he's going to be at the event. The picture done significantly better. So that's one thing to bear in mind. I think people on LinkedIn like seeing that personable side to a business, putting a face to the business. So that's something that we would recommend too. So that would be it, I believe. Now I think we can open the floor up for any further questions, I believe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, we have some questions in the chat. I know we only have a few minutes left, so we may not get to all of them, but I'll pick out a few. One question that is actually a really good question, I wonder this myself. Do hashtags even matter on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that age-old question. So LinkedIn has in the past said, if you're using questions, hashtags, excuse me, 3 to 5
Okay.
relevant hashtags. In the past few months, we've started moving away from them, and we haven't noticed either a positive or negative
Yeah.
difference. So I think it's very industry specific, trial and error. What maybe do one post with hashtags and then another without, and see what works best. But we found that they don't really have too much of an impact.
Yeah, totally. I've noticed that too. And then I saw a comment in the chat saying how it's been recently said that you shouldn't put links in the actual post. You should put it in the comment. Is that something that everyone should be doing, or how should we approach it?
Yeah, so LinkedIn doesn't want you to send someone away from the platform at the end of the day.
Mm.
If you've got a call to action to your website, perhaps you're taking someone away from LinkedIn. So that's something that LinkedIn's going to pick up on. But at the end of the day, call to actions are natural. So whether that's in your comments or on your post, those are necessary unless your call to action is you just want to put your email or your phone number or message me to find out more, or comment to find out more. Um, yeah, I think there is a fine line. We've started to notice that, if there is a link on the post, they don't do it as well as if there isn't a link that's taking you away from LinkedIn, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. When I first saw that come out, I was like, okay. And then I've seen more and more people kind of following that. So it
Yeah.
makes sense that LinkedIn kind of wants you to stay in their platform. They don't want you to be clicking out and going to other places. But I know we're up on time, but I will send your LinkedIn profile in the chat again so that all of you can connect. If you have any questions that we weren't able to answer today, you can always send them off. And then I did notice some questions about LinkedIn newsletters. So if that is something that you guys want more information on, let me know. I can always make that a topic in the new year, sometime in our webinars, because I think that'd be a very cool webinar on its own. So if that is something you want to see, let us know. But yes, that is everything. And thank you so much for joining us today. You provided so much good information. I feel like I just learned so much, and I know that the audience feels the same because of all their amazing comments. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have to have you on again for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure, and thank you everyone for the great questions. If I think my LinkedIn's been added, so if anyone does have any questions that I didn't get around to, by all means, feel free to send me a message. I'll love to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, this is being recorded, so everyone will get a copy of this tomorrow sent to their email.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.